What is up? Today we are doing our long-awaited Smashing Pumpkins Siamese Dream. We are doing this because of the recent about to be 25th anniversary of Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness.
So we picked another album.
Yeah, so we picked a different album.
Well, Melancholy is pretty too long.
Yeah, Melancholy's like wicked long.
Yeah, it's 29 songs, something like that. It's a double album.
This was a record that came out in 1993.
And
it is about an hour long. So
it's like
pretty brisk listen, in all honesty. Get through it.
Oh, it's easy.
There's a couple of chunks in there for longer songs, but most of them are, relatively normal size.
That's kind of shoegaze in general, It's very thick, if that's the right word.
No, I get what you mean.
Thick and lucid.
I get what you mean.
Yeah. You had the story of...
The story of this album is actually Billy Corgan actually wrote this album when he was planning to commit suicide. And that's
what today was talking about, right?
Yeah, that's kind of...
You can feel it in the whole album.
That's the kind of...
once you've heard that and you're listening to it, it changes the dynamic of so much.
Damn.
You know what I mean? That you're plotting your own demise.
Yeah, and
at
that's
your own
what
hands.
Today, and the thing about today is it's kind of a joke. And it's not a joke, but it sounds so sarcastic.
Right.
Just because of the strength of Billy's just nasally vocal.
He's a sarcastic man.
Dude, absolutely. Yeah, and this is just a really interesting listen when you hear about that information and you...
Can I piggyback on that just a second? He puts out Gish, and he's got a band, and he's got a lead guitarist and a bass player that's dating and starting to break up. He's got a drummer that's on heroin, and he's trying to get that dude to stop. For the first time in his life, people are accepting him. He tells the story of, I had a granddad that was military, didn't like me, did not give me any attention whatsoever. I made money. On the Joe Rogan podcast, he was talking about this. He said, I made some money. My granddad goes to church and people start talking about how good I am at my job, and I come back for Thanksgiving and suddenly he wants to help me invest my money and he wants to pay attention to me all of a sudden. But I'm the one who's changed, right?
Yeah.
His whole life, Corgan is a person who feels that he's a social outcast, and suddenly, and I think that a lot of the Seattle sound, a lot of the grunge movement, I think that all of those people dealt with, we were never supposed to be cool, and somehow the world has decided we are. And Kurt killed himself over it. You know what I mean? How do you deal with the fact that these people are accepting you that you don't respect? But heroin too, but you know what I'm saying?
Just a little dash of heroin,
But and Billy's dealing with that too. He's never been cool. He was never supposed to be cool. And yet he is uber talented, and actually when they're making the record, he's telling his band to rehearse these parts that he's written for them. They don't rehearse them. They come in and record them. They leave the studio, and he just goes in and plays their tracks for them because they can't get it done like he wants it. And his frustration level with them being unable to work together is driving him crazy, causing him to be suicidal. I'm sorry. Go ahead now. I apologize.
I did feel... And there's something weird about this track because... Just this album in general, and it's very fascinating. Just a look in, and this is kind of their second big album. Their big album is Melancholy. We of course we did choose this because it is less long, and as well as Dad seems to have. I remember Dad was talking about it very highly.
I'm very fond of this record, and I saw this over the course of these two albums, Siamese Dream, Melancholy. I saw them 3 times in different scenarios. One at a Lollapalooza, 2 of their own shows. I got 3 totally different sets, which maybe we'll talk about, maybe we won't. But I've always liked the Smashing Pumpkins, but a lot of what they do is depression. And there doesn't always feel like hope at the end of it. And so I don't, as I've gotten older, I stay away from that a little more and more.
That's a lot of grunge.
Well, maybe that's the difference between like Pearl Jam and the rest of them is that there's hope at the end of Pearl Jam a lot of the time, and a lot of times when I can't go to Alice in Chains all the time because it feels hollow when it's over. I can't go to the Pumpkins all the time.
And that's the point.
It feels hollow. But I also feel like all of us deal with these insecurities that this style of music brings out in you, which I think is a good place for you to go periodically, because I think you have to admit to yourselves that there's things you need to know about yourself and about others around you that force you to dive into.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like this record, basically. But it was also important for me at a specific moment in my life where I was insecure about where I would go and what I should do. You know what I mean? And that's a big part of what music does for people anyway. You know what I mean? Not that I've ever had any self-confidence issues. I didn't want you to ever think that, because I'm uber self-confident.
Yes.
Just gonna walk outside shirtless,
Not much.
Not often.
Okay, let's get into the questions.
Sure.
Okay, I may have overtalked. I apologize if it did. How do you feel about the opener? Cherub Rock is a song that is played on rock radio and alternative radio today as well. So in 93. What did you think about the opener, Jared?
It bangs.
It's really good.
It's good, yeah. No, it's one of my favorite songs on the album.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I love this song. I love the build-up. I love the explosion of this dreamy atmosphere and the guitar and then Billy's voice kicks in, and then all of this stuff.
Another thing about Billy's lyrics is you never know for sure about what on earth he's saying.
Yeah, but you're vibing with it. You know what I mean? There are times where I'm like, I have no idea what that means, Billy, but like I feel it.
Yeah. Who wants honey? As long as there's some money.
Well, apparently that was about like how people in the music industry just kind of didn't want to play music and they just kind of wanted money.
Absolutely.
So that made sense.
Absolutely. You don't believe in your craft. I believe in this craft.
Absolutely.
This is what I'm made of. That's exactly. He's lashing out
because that kind of feels like something you'd make, like a lyric you'd make, like after your full experience with the music industry was done.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like this was their second album, and they were already finding sellouts.
He screams over and over, "Let me out."
Yes.
You know what I mean?
The dynamic between this song and I think Rocket, where he's talking about how people are calling him, in Rocket particularly, people are calling him a sellout because he signed to a company, and he's like, dog, why?
Right.
And I love this line that he says, I torch my soul to show the world that I am pure. And I love that. Like, he really is just putting himself out there and just setting himself ablaze, in a sense.
Right.
And people are still like, oh, are you real?
Right.
And it's like, dog, yeah.
and you know, the whole, I mean, obviously you'll never get the opportunity, but I would love to hear him, if he would be willing to, say, and maybe he doesn't know, but would a person be contemplating their own suicide in order to free them up and tell you everything that's really going on in their mind because there aren't consequences at the end? If you don't accept me.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're the new Nirvana. You've given me money. You've given me a studio. Everything's falling apart. But I want to put out
honest
everything that I am.
Yes.
This
album is honest.
And if you people hate me for that, I have an answer to it. Which is horrible to think about in its own way. But is it weird that my mind went there?
No. I agree that at that point in time, you don't really have a whole lot to lose.
Right.
Where you're just like, oh, if you don't like it,
I'll just kill myself.
Which is horrible, but that line of logic, it feels present in this album, where it's just like, I'm literally going to put out how I feel.
Right.
And everything I might be a little sarcastic here or there, but this is an honest album front to back.
Right. And if you don't like who this is, that's fine, but you don't like me.
Because
this album is who I am.
Me.
Right, correct. Warts and all. How'd you feel about the closer?
Closer was...
Sweet.
No, I thought the closer was
Luna.
I do want to actually kind of put these two together, because Sweet Sweet's not a very long song.
I feel like they are together.
Yeah, and
one's
I feel
an intro
like...
to the other.
Because the last three songs are Silver F, which is like a long...
8 minutes.
8 minutes something.
Seconds.
It goes pretty hard, and then it transitions into Sweet and Luna, which have a close vibe.
Right.
It slows down considerably.
Hence why they're called Sweet and Luna.
Yes.
Those are very, like...
And Sweet is a different dynamic altogether than the rest of the album. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I do feel like.
What did you think, though? I'm sorry.
I really liked the vibe shift at the end to Sweet Sweet being more sad, more melancholy, and Luna being sweet in a way, talking about like the songs that you sing your babies, what sunshine do you bring, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's contemplative.
I feel like.
And it feels like at the end of an album that takes you over this emotional, again, very, not accurate. What word? I'm not. It's not
Introspective?
honest was the word I was
Absolutely.
thinking of. Honest album of raw emotions. At the end, you do get this little bit of calmer, maybe not hopeful, but more introspective melancholy.
Does it seem oddly fitting that the next album would be melancholy?
Like
Infinite
literally 100%.
Almost like the last two songs of this album are an intro into the next record.
Yeah, I probably could have started it and just gone.
Go right into the next record.
Yeah, I feel like after like Disarm is when it kind of shifts into more shoegaze style and more not because before Disarm, okay, Cherub Rock, Quiet, Today, Hummer, Rocket, those are all like hard hitting songs, and
Absolutely.
but when Disarm hits, it goes to Soma, Geek USA, Mayonnaise, Space Boy, Silver Frick,
Yeah.
and
Sweet Luna.
Sweet Sweet Luna, and I feel like that's a lot more. And while like Geek USA is a harder song, that's probably like the only harder song here. Like all of these songs are more melancholic, especially like Mayonnaise.
And dude, Mayonnaise is really good.
I was gonna probably pick Mayonnaise as one of my favorite songs, despite it being named mayonnaise, which is just an unpleasant word.
The last little
Mayonnaise
part
is an unpleasant condiment, dude.
the last
I'm
little
gonna start
part
swinging.
but the last little part of Silver Frick or whatever you want to call it is
Let's just call it Silver.
yeah.
Yeah.
The last little part of that, the bang bang, you're dead, holding your head, takes you into Sweet Sweet so well. You know what I mean? We'll get to that in a minute, I think.
The composition of these songs musically and the composition of the album as a whole is just really, really good.
Right.
I think that's probably my favorite part of it.
Right. Now, for your least favorite track,
Probably, maybe like it'd have to be Soma, or maybe Space Boy. Even though I think Space Boy's pretty good.
it's really good. Right. I get it though.
Yeah, but it's probably Soma. Maybe Disarm.
Here's where I'm going to get into a little bit of criticism
Go
for
ahead.
the album. Listening through, I always, every time I listen to it, had to take a break after Disarm. I do not like Disarm.
Oh, okay.
It is the one track on the album where I'm just like, man, I don't think his voice fits here. Where it's like the composition is really solid, but his voice just does not flow like it does on any other song.
Right.
I really like Disarm's concept and the lyrics in it, but again, I don't think his voice in this song fits with the song.
Can I tell you an interesting concert story
Yes.
on that? One time when I saw them, they sounded very much like the records. One time when I saw them, everything was faster, and Disarm was played at I don't want to say a breakneck speed, but there was no whispering, there was no kindness, there was no hurt.
Just angry.
And when I left the show, people I was with were like, "That was awful. He didn't sound anything like the record." And I kind of looked around at him and I said, "Man, I don't know. I think that was because it felt to me like he was. I don't know what it was, but he was freaking pissed off when he got on that stage and he played that thing like it was a punk rock concert and he laid waste to everything in front of him and he stormed off. And I was blown away by the anger that he gave me and the genuineness of what I just saw.
Absolutely.
And as a performer, first of all, to be able to go out there and just do the music completely different than it's written is incredible.
Yeah.
Second of all, that it absolutely worked is incredible. And so it's interesting that you say he didn't feel right, because when he was doing Disarm, there were people like, well, it didn't sound like Disarm. And I was like, nah, it sounded like great. You know?
Because I know he purposefully made it not angry.
Right.
Like he went, like there's a little interview thing that says that he says he wanted it to be not angry, but just again, honest and open and like not tender exactly.
Almost
but,
begging.
yeah, almost that. And I don't know. I probably would have enjoyed it more if it had been more along the punk lines.
Right.
But just in general, I will say his voice does grate on me a little bit after a while. So
He is
that
definitely
break
a
in the
sound.
middle.
What was your least favorite track, Ray?
Probably Disarm. Well, then not that I didn't think it was bad, but I thought that it just in general, I feel like I'd put Disarm there.
I think that if I were to say like what's my least favorite track, I would probably say they're the last two, but they also fit the record so perfectly. I don't think it's fair to say that they need to be there, and they are good. It's just if I'm picking to listen to a record in its entirety, it has to be there. But I would never pick those two songs to just listen to them. And most of the rest of the album, I would. Now,
Absolutely vibe with
your
that.
favorite track?
Favorite trap? Probably Today. Either Today, Quiet, or Cherub Rock, or Mayonnaise.
Yeah, there's like a lot of songs I liked.
Or Rocket, or I get it.
But out of all of them, I'd probably have to go to Today, just because of it's so snarky.
It just drips.
It's so it's so like
Not like
it's
drip.
a specific.
He paused for comedic effect.
Comedic effect, and then he got caught.
It's a specific. It's a snark only the early '90s could give.
Correct.
Very
Like
much so.
their movies were about being movies. Their rock stars didn't want to be freaking rock stars, and it's like,
Well, you
It's
have
so
you have an era of kids, right? That
Yeah.
that are raised in a time of a lot of, in order to be great, you need to excel yourself. What's important is the parents were told of these children, what's important is your status in society. You have to achieve that. There's a lot of pressure there. And the people who wind up being popular in these genres are the people who are pushing back against that and saying, no, it really shouldn't just be about me. Because if it's just about me, then it's never about any of these other people who need us. And that's where the grunge comes from. That's where the angst comes from. That's the pushback of a generation that wanted. That's Rage Against the Machine. That's
Straight up.
It should be about more than just myself, my bank account, and what kind of freaking car I drive.
Absolutely.
You know that it's the kids that were raised by yuppies.
wait,
You
are
know
you
what I
telling
mean?
me Rage
And
Against the
they're
Machine was
pushing
political?
against that.
What?
Believe it or not.
They were pissed. I believe Rage Against the Machine was very pissed the whole time. Still are.
What?
Good for them, by the way. If you can hang on to that kind of anger for years on end, good for you.
Well, they didn't have
That's
a very
a
lengthy
level.
career, did they?
There's levels to
No,
this.
but like they're still mad today. They're still raging against the machine.
Morello plays on everybody's record. But anyway, let's get back to favorite track?
Mayonnaise, I might say. Again, despite it having an unpleasant name,
That's the point, though, right? That's the point of everything he does. It's nothing's pleasant.
there's a little
Everything's awesome.
there's a little bit of facetiousness.
Also, there's something
Yes.
because whenever I think of that name, I just think of huge glops of mayonnaise, and it's disgusting.
Absolutely. I really like the lyrics. The fool enough to almost be it, cool enough to not quite see it. Like
Yeah.
stuff like that, I think really comes off the most strongly to me.
Shout out to Quiet, too.
Yes, facts.
Quiet! I exclaim.
No, that's actually the
But that's another one where sometimes he just says stuff and I have absolutely no idea what he means, including this line that I wanted to point out. Silent metal mercies castrate boys to the bone. And then it says, Corgan wrote specifically regarding these lyrics, this line has always made me wince a little in familiar refrain. Trust the song, not the singer. A car chase starts, winter ends. None of that is parsable. None of that means anything to anyone but Billy Corgan. I have no idea what that
Life's
means.
a bummer when you're a Hummer. Right.
I understand, but like at the same time, it's like I get what it means on like a conceptual.
Well, and too,
Or
think about
emotional.
when you're in states of despair, right? Think about how hard it is to kind of put your finger on why. You just know that this makes you upset and that makes you upset, and they shouldn't all make you as upset as you are because it seems like it's been a snowball effect. None of it's that important specifically, but together it accumulates and overwhelms you, right? I don't know what would be my favorite song on here. Cherub Rock is a song I'm just always thankful when it comes on because it's just great.
Absolutely.
But it is a little bit.
And what the next question I actually want to talk about a little.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Say it.
Okay. How'd you feel about Corgan's voice in songwriting?
Okay, I think we've already talked about his songwriting a lot, but I think I like the contrast between his kind of nasally clean vocals and the crunchy, muddy guitars.
The layers of instruments they have in all these songs.
Think about the way, too, he incorporates whispering, calm speak,
and
screaming.
Agreed.
and breathing, and the like, who wants honey?
His voice is
loud?
absolutely...
And it's always... There's always a choice. Like, he always knows when to breathe and when to not.
He feels like he's deliberately... Like, that's not just... He doesn't have, like, a set way he sings. You know what I mean? Like, he goes and he looks at the lyrics and he's like, I should probably deliver it like this. Instead of just being like, I'm going to go out there and yell because that's what I do. And that I'm not, like, knocking that, but, like, there's, like, an extra level, layer of thought in that process.
The tone of which I deliver this matters as much as the words I say.
Straight
it matters
up, yes.
as much. And if I can contradict the music with a whisper or a scream or a yell, it leads to the fact that all of this is a contradiction because of my upset. It's so wonderful the way he puts it all together. Now, I do get the whole... It's hard to listen to him 4, 5, 6 songs in a row because he has a unique voice, a Mustaine, that type of a Kurt Cobain, where if he ain't your thing, then he ain't your thing. You know what I mean? And if he is your thing, then you'll go to bat for him every day of the week. And then there's those of us in the middle who can listen to him and like him. And
about six or seven songs, then I have to take a break.
Right, correct. I get it. Now,
You'd hate Melancholy.
I'd have to like take 5 breaks in that album.
So what would we rate this out of 10?
I'll go with a 9.
I'll go with like a mid 8, like 8.5-ish.
Okay, I think I'm going to go with a high 8, like you're saying. The only thing is, to me, is there's nothing wrong with this album. To me, and there's nothing wrong with this album, right? It's well put together. The ending explains the middle explains the beginning, and vice versa. He trims the fat, right? But it's still only, how do I put it? It's still just 2 guitars, a bass, a drum, his voice. You know what I mean? Like, you can tell there's more in this, and he gets there with the next record, with 1979, when there's a little bit more interesting.
Oh, Melancholy's almost flawless. It's just too dang long.
But what I mean is, I found who I am, and here it is.
I kind of get the reason why Melancholy is so long. It's so long so you can incorporate all this.
Correct.
Stuff.
I'm swinging for the fences.
That's an explanation
with everything I have at my fingertips, and I lean that direction. You know what I mean? Like, my favorite album, as we said before, is Sign of the Times, which has every album inside of it. So for this to be better than a 9 or a high 8, it would have to do more than just stick to the plan, which doesn't hurt this album. It actually makes it better. It's just a 10 for me is different than what a 10 what this album is. That's all.
I mean, there's also, I want to say that there's probably been a point in time in my life, or there will be a point in time in my life where I might vibe with this album more.
Right.
It depends on a lot of things.
Right, but be careful, because there's some depressing crap going on in there.
Oh, okay. I was actually gonna do a question. This is a special thing. What are you guys' go-to sad albums?
The Glow Part 2 by the Microphones is one. Not one I go to as often anymore, but that is an interesting question.
Dad, what is yours?
I don't know that I have a go-to sad album. I would say that a lot of times I go to Estranged by Guns N' Roses when I'm really down. And I don't necessarily do it on purpose. It just winds up being on, which is strange. Like, I do it on purpose.
Strange.
I don't go. It is strange. I don't go.
I'm funny.
I don't sit down in the car and go, I'm going to put on Estranged. I just do it. You know what I mean? So that's what I mean by that. Go ahead, though.
What would be yours, Ray? As I'm looking through my list to see if I have another one.
For a while, it was The Devil and God Are Raging Inside Me. And then the stuff came up. Now now I only go to Devil and God Raging Inside Me. I only like pirate it when I get really sad. Really, really sad boy hours.
Yes.
Usually now I'd probably more casually it's Pinkerton. Because I can go, hey, I'm depressed. But I ain't that depressed.
There is a record called Brothers of a Feather, which is a live record where Chris Robinson and Rich Robinson play acoustic together. And that is something I do go to. They have a song called Diamond Cursed. When you hear that unplugged, it's really...
Hold on. I did actually want to hear your reaction to this, Jared. So you remember the song Pink Triangle, right? Yeah.
Was it off Pinkerton?
Off Pinkerton, yeah.
Which
Pink
song was
Triangle
that?
on her sleeve.
Oh yeah, because it was about him falling in love with a girl and then she was like a lesbian and he was sad about it, which is the funniest imaginable thing I've ever heard.
Funny thing about that. Did you know that the girl wasn't actually a lesbian? And she was just wearing a pink triangle to support?
Just showing solidarity.
And Rivers just can't catch a break? That is the worst.
I think that's what makes Pinkerton so authentic, is that I 100% know that everything he felt on that album was real.
Right. Which is the point, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now,
even if it gets uncomfortable at some points.
Did we listen to anything good this week?
I did want to say another sad boy album for me is Purple Mountains by Purple Mountains.
There you go.
It's good. All my happiness
I
is
guess
gone.
it's good that you didn't listen to that this week.
Yes, I did not.
Because you didn't see him saying it because you would have been sad. So got him. Bruce Springsteen released a new record.
That is strange. I'm not gonna check it out just because I'm not that interested in new Bruce Springsteen, but I might check it out somewhere down the road.
Shoots hard on Bruce Springsteen.
When somebody said when they were talking about the album when we went to there, it's no Nebraska, and I went, oh,
the guy at the record store.
Yeah.
It's no Nebraska.
What his point was though, that Bruce had been talking about this record and he lost the last living member of the first band he was in, passed away. Not the East Street Band, pre-East Street Band. And he felt like I need to write something that pays tribute to that group of people that were with me back then. And so he said it's introspective, but it's not Nebraska introspective. That's what he was trying to say.
That's fair.
I did listen. London Calling, Clash.
That got released this week?
No. No, actually.
Feels like way longer.
You listened to London Calling this week?
Yeah, I did.
Right. It's great.
Yeah, it's might be the greatest double album ever made.
It's pretty dang good.
It's up there, dude. It's up there with The Wall and.
Say that again though, and I might have to slap you in the head with Sign of the Times.
Ooh.
Literally, the record.
Like you have it.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, it's crazy because every song on this album has its own reason, right? It has the more funky tracks, the more reggaeton tracks. I usually hate it when white people try to do reggae, but
ouch,
this works so much better. Even the freaking not reggae, but more try to do that more I don't know how to say it, but the With or Without You by the Beatles. I'm not the biggest fan of that song. I'm not the biggest fan of when they try to do that type of stuff, but when the Clash do it, it works super well.
I think too, people don't realize that a lot of the Police and the Clash, who did manage to use those rhythms well in their music, they grow up not too far removed from the Jamaican areas of London. There were riots in that time period in those communities, and some of the plights that both communities, the ones they were growing up in and the reggae community, the Jamaican community, were going through some of the same issues, because socioeconomically they're very similar, right? They're still not being allowed into that level above. And so the content is very similar to what inspires them, and the rhythms are wonderful. You know what I mean? So it's a very easy thing for a guy that area 4 streets over.
Let me
is going through the same thing I'm going through.
Let me actually correct myself so I don't anger the old people as much. Within You, Without You was the name of the Beatles song.
All right, good.
I've been listening. I'm coming around on Ultramono by the Idols. Or by Idols.
Good.
I'm coming, like, I just started listening to it because, again, I took breaks with Siamese Dream, so I would, like, throw on something else.
Right.
And I was really, like, feeling it
right.
this time. I'm going
it's
through
good.
the track list, and I'm like, dude, I don't care about your Rose Garden.
Right. Yeah.
Like, there
the
is...
Village song, dude, like, it's filled with bangers.
Not
right.
Mixed
It's filled with bangers.
I don't have mixed feelings, but my main criticism of it is that, like, it can get a little too wacky for me. It can get a little too tongue-in-cheek.
You don't enjoy the, oh my god, what is it?
Like, thumb.
No, like Conor McGregor with the samurai sword on rollerblades.
Well, yeah, that...
Like, who was it? Like David Attenborough clubbing steel clubbers with LeBron James.
And it's like, it's so just wacky. It almost like... Joy was kind of wacky, but it wasn't like...
Like, the first real line off of Joy, I will say, was, I'm like Stone Cold Steve Austin. I put homophobes in coffins.
Whoa.
Which is
awesome.
Phenomenal.
Yes.
But that has, like, reason to it. Like,
right.
Conor McGregor in a samurai sword on rollerblades has...
He's supposed to be
Listen.
just violent and aggressive.
Listen, I'm not sure what that means, but I'm 100% sure it's too specific to mean nothing.
Yes. I'm vibing with the emotion of it.
Yes.
I
a blur of anger and violence.
Just anger and speed and sharpness.
I don't know if I want to see them go in this direction as much. I feel like there are better directions to go in after Joy.
Yeah, I mean, like, I still definitely... Joy's probably one of my favorite albums, and I enjoy the more post-punky direction that it went in. But I'm coming around to appreciate Ultramono quite a bit.
If you are into vinyl... we were at the record store, the local Pensacola record store yesterday, and I've noticed that we are getting a lot of in-concert releases on vinyl that hadn't been out there before. Like Pearl Jam is putting out different. A couple weeks ago, my wife purchased the actual Pensacola concert. Months ago, okay.
Yeah.
The actual Pensacola concert that Pearl Jam played on vinyl. Yesterday, I purchased a Van Halen record that he ordered. He said specifically because it said Van Halen, which I'm assuming because Eddie died, he knew he could turn that over quick.
I mean, he was right.
He was right. I purchased it. Like he took it out of a box and said, "I got this because it says Van Halen," and I took it out of his hand and handed it to him to purchase. It's a show in Maryland from 1982, and if David Lee Roth don't look like a hero in the furry pants.
Straight up, dude. Straight up. Dude, even the middle part of the album, when you open it up, the image is just awesome.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. They knew what they were selling, man, and it worked.
Dude,
It's a good show.
Speaking of Pearl Jam Live, Pearl Jam's Unplugged was released a little while ago, which is weird.
Thursday.
Like,
remember, it was a couple weeks ago, he said, I don't understand why the Pearl Jam Unplugged isn't on album, and it got released Thursday on Spotify.
That's the power we have. Dude.
I am Nostradamus.
They're keeping it on the low because they don't want to give us our credit.
Exactly.
I think I actually did end up this is an album that got released like at the start of 2020, like not at the start of 2020, but like it feels like a decade ago. Logic's new album, which
what was the name of it?
It was something like Overpressure or something like that. It was
titled as his like final album that he was done.
No Pressure.
No Pressure,
because his first album was Under Pressure, and yeah, it's surprisingly decent. It's solid.
Yeah, Logic has had a career of making music that's not particularly
If you don't know who Logic is, remember in The Real Slim Shady when Eminem said that now that he's a white rapper that's everywhere, there are going to be a bunch of white rappers that are copying me, but no one's going to be just like me? Eminem is Nostradamus, is my argument here. Logic has embodied that for a while, and has gotten some of the worst reviews, period, and some of the worst albums of the decade. But this album was decent and solid and surprisingly good.
Excellent.
Why haven't you been doing this your whole career?
I don't know. Any number. I mean, it could be any number of reasons. Whether he just, at some point, he was just like, I'm just going to do whatever I want.
Right.
The whole no pressure thing, right?
Yeah.
Didn't he say it was going to be his last record?
It's got pretty good. Yeah, it's gonna be. He's retired. It's pretty good.
He didn't say, as soon as it's over, I'm killing myself.
I mean, yeah, it was Billy Corgan, but not quite as hardcore.
Way better. Way better.
But like
that didn't end in his death.
I'd
Right.
never see myself liking a Logic album that isn't under pressure. This was good.
So, is that a wrap?
That was Matt. We are doing classic.
We're doing The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars by David Bowie.
Classic.
Review.
Rock opera-esque. David Bowie, classic rock.
There is no esque. It's a rock opera.
A quintessential. I'm told, I guess. I haven't listened to it.
We should cover this because it is important to rock music.
Yes, it is very.
I feel like, again, we probably just needed at some point to do a Bowie album.
There's
a lot to choose from.
There were like,
and I feel like at
8,
some point it's this week.
Yes, I'm feeling it too.
I feel like there are like 8 Bowie albums we could have chose from.
I mean, dude, even like his last album, Black Star rules.
Right. Absolutely. Okay, so is that a wrap?
That is absolutely a wrap.
So this is a Go Home Heat production.
Actually, you know what?
Copyright 2020. Ray's musical reviews. Jared, Ray, me, KP. You were going to say something?
Go home.